What is going on, people? It is good to have you back with us. Another edition of Unfiltered comes your way right here, right now. This will officially go down your scorecard, episode number 283. You could jump on board the Unfiltered Revolution 24/7, 365. It is easy. Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts, where most of you are and you're listening. You could jump on board on Twitter, artist formerly known as, if you call it X, that's fine too. At Casey Stern, get up into the bio. It'll take you through to the YouTube channel where you could watch and view and like and subscribe and tell all your friends about all the content, the videos, the interviews, like recently. And I'm so happy and thankful for the response to my chat with Ariel Helwani. We had Rex Chapman on recently, among others. You can go all the way back in the Wayback Machine, and Dusty Baker and many other from players and coaches and all sorts of different rants and lists and things. And you can get it all on YouTube. And we're even on Instagram now. As I said, since we're new there, I kind of feel like when I was on MySpace and Tom was your only friend. So please give us a follow and help us out at Unfiltered with Casey Stern on Instagram. We're going to get into a lot today. I want to hit up Ohtani, Judge, both with big home runs. Dodgers and Yankees, obviously, off to great starts. Talk some Orioles, get into the Guardians, little Texas Rangers, of course, some Mets, as they've got a doubleheader coming up today. They're 0-4-2, as I like to say, to start the season. 4 losses and 2 ties thanks to the rain. The Red Sox and the Angels, no rain on their parade. Both teams have kind of poked fun at a little bit here on Unfiltered last month or so, and both off to pretty decent starts. Angels have bounced back with a big sweep, albeit against the Marlins team that's 0-7. No shade thrown, just saying. And, the Red Sox up at 5-2. We'll get into that a little bit. And I want to bounce away from baseball and get into hockey. Many of you know who certainly listen to the show or know me over the years. I'm a diehard hockey fan. My favorite team in any sport is the Islanders. That's why if you're watching on video, you always see that in the background. But 2 teams that I've certainly loved to hate over the course of my lifetime. Got involved in a brawl yesterday that I'm going to defend mightily because people are crapping on it and trying to talk about all the issues with the sport or how bad it is and need to literally, it's making me want to vomit. They need to shut up. So we'll get into all of that. In the meantime, we're never shutting out, and we're always thanking our good friends at Bet Online. We are, as always, presented by Bet Online, your number one source for all your sports betting needs. They've got the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports. Baseball, basketball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to get all your wagers. Live betting, favorite casino and card games, they're all available right now, right from your phone. So get over the website, use your mobile device, sign up today, get on the action. You can use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV. It'll get you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. It is BetOnline where the game starts as we get started here. And I should start with this. My allergies are a mess. If you live, and I'm down here in Georgia near Atlanta, if you live in this area, pollen is the devil, and it is taking over during this time period every year. So bear with me. In the meantime, let's start here. I've equated in my own mind, at least, and say this out loud, Ohtani not pitching and just hitting to being like in Teen Wolf when Marty McFly just became a basketball player. And even though they won and it was great, and it was the end of the movie, it was like they wanted the wolf. We're all going to want the wolf. And the wolf for Ohtani is going to be when we see him pitch and hit again. And he's a mortal other than that. He's a great player. He is certainly a power hitter. Hello, 430 feet yesterday. And he's one of the best offensive players in the world. There's no doubt about it. But could you stake a claim that certainly off to the start he is, with Mookie Betts with 5 dingers already or whatever it is, then maybe he's not even the best hitter on his own team. I think that's fair. But as a player, he's clearly the best in the sport when he's doing what he does. Then, of course, you've got all that other stuff. The fact that I don't know what to believe with Ohtani, if we're being honest. And again, you can go back and listen to, and I got plenty of response from some of those videos I did. You can go back to the podcast. I did one on Ohtani before his statement, one on after his statement, and addressed all of the holes in what he said. And it's not to say, because I have said, that it is not that I think that he gambled, and it's not that I think that he's guilty of that or of some federal offense, except maybe putting his name on something to back up a friend. Maybe that was the story. That was the actual story for 48 hours with ESPN, because otherwise, I've said this before, say it again, he should fire his whole team. Because how does it get through all of your staff relying solely on a translator? And I get the language barrier. to then get that far into the story before, oh, wait a minute, what do you mean you had a gambling addiction? And how could your best friend in the States for all that time have such an addiction, such a problem, such debt, and you have no idea? And how do we get in a situation where both the guys are on one page and then seemingly on separate, where it goes from, hey, we're together forever to all of a sudden we've got, what was it, tremendous theft or severe theft or whatever the word was that they used, right? And then we're talking about victim. I don't know. How do you bankroll somebody with no money for $4.5 million? And if it's with Ohtani's name, how did you not get some security or whatever it is of the bookie and not raise an eyebrow and be like, really, Ohtani's gambling with me? That seems odd. There's a lot there. A lot. And that cloud isn't so much of a cloud right now because it's going to be a long-term investigation, even though Rob Manfred hopes that it's short, and I think he's crazy to believe that, but it's fine because we're crazy to sit there and watch jerseys like we're watching, where you're going to sit there and read like the fifth line in the eye doctor's office to figure out who the hell's name is on the back, and we're pretending like we don't understand that that's a problem still. We still don't know who snuck into the warehouse years ago to fix the baseball, so we get it, right? But there is a question about long-term what happens. But in the meantime, going back to the baseball field, Ohtani struggling-ish. I mean, for Ohtani, it's only 4, 5, 6 game, whatever it was, right? 7-2, so 8 games into the season. But it was his longest drought to open a season without a home run, and drought no mas. 430 feet yesterday. And this lineup now, look, the Dodgers on paper are the best team in baseball. The Dodgers could put up the best record in baseball. What, they won 110 games a few years ago, right? They could go win 105, 110 games. It's not going to matter if they don't win the World Series, or I would say if at least they don't get to a World Series. Everything else going to be probably a disappointment there. I mean, look, anything can happen. Some of the best teams in baseball in 7 games, it is what it is. But they can't have a year like last year where, before Ohtani and before Yamamoto and before Glasnow, who, by the way, won again yesterday. The guys pitched 3 times already, considering they started in Korea, right? Not bad. 3 of the first 9 games, that guy's on the mound. And forget about Teoscar Hernandez, who, even with Betts and Freeman and Ohtani and everything else they got in the lineup, dude's got 10 driven in already and 4 homers and off to a great start. And apparently it seems like it's befriended Ohtani big time too. Before all that, they were favorites, and the Diamondbacks took them out in 3 games, sent them home, and embarrassed them. That can't happen. That can't happen. Now, this year, that really can't happen. You want to talk about the pressure being on. The pressure's on the Los Angeles Dodgers big time to an umpteenth level, but they're 7-2 out of the gates. Pretty darn good. Dodger fan, want to hear from you. Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast. Then just jump on afterwards over to Twitter and get me at Casey Stern. Give me a follow and leave me a note. You can also jump on the YouTube channel and get comments there. And I do respond to pretty much every comment, so definitely converse with me along the way. All right. Meanwhile, along the way, we go from Dodgers. Let's go to Yankees. They're at 6-1 because there's this other guy who's pretty good at baseball, Aaron Judge, who had not homered yet. And I say had not because that drought is over too. Judge hits his first home run of the year. Then, most importantly, drives in a game-winning knock in the 11th inning in a back-and-forth, topsy-turvy last couple innings of that game, and something where Torey Lovullo, who I've always loved for his candor in addition to everything else, said, hey, look, in that spot, first base open, Aaron Judge, guy on second, I probably should have put him on first base, and he's right. But he pays the price, and the Yankees are off to a 6-1 start. Rodon, some good, some not so good in the start. Bullpen looked pretty good, was able to hang on, even though some hiccups. Obviously an unearned runs got in the way. But at the end of the day, for Aaron Judge and for the Yankees, this is a hell of a start to their season. And Juan Soto is human. Who knew? 0 for 5 yesterday. But they are a deeper lineup than they've been in years. I mean, clearly you can tell that there is more confidence when they turn that thing over to the next hitter that somebody's going to drive it in, because we watched for years where they're just sitting there waiting and hoping that bases could be loaded somehow, some way for Aaron Judge, because that's the one at-bat that was going to matter. Not that way watching the Yankees anymore. We know the Garrett Cole situation, going to be an issue, still an issue, but hey, 6 out of 7, not bad to start, especially with the 2 out of 3 they got out of the Diamondbacks so far. Let's stay in the American League Eastern Division. The Baltimore Orioles Second walk-off win in their last 3 nights. James McCann. Hello, Met fans. Met legend James McCann. Hopefully you were watching with the Orioles yesterday. Gets the winning knock with the RBI as they come back. Corbin Burns yesterday in the start was fairly human. Wasn't terrible, but with the stuff that he clearly didn't have, was able to skate out the door, especially how well Reagans had pitched on the other side, to just be down 2-0. But the Orioles bounce back. They get a couple of runs late. And then that's all she wrote. James McCann, of all people, getting the walk-off. This Orioles team is so nasty. I've said this since day one, going back in spring training, that they should be among the favorites to get to win a World Series. They should be the clear favorite in the American League East. If you go and look at it, and you go online because people have been posting it, what their AAA team is doing with Jackson Holliday and with that group and the kind of hitters that they have not even touched or scratched the surface of the big league level yet, to add on to the Rushmans and to add on to the Gunnar Hendersons and Mullins and all of what they have. This Orioles team has a chance to do what the Braves have done in the National League with Alex Anthopoulos and put together a team that seemingly for days has all these young names. And then you have to figure out a way to be, I don't know what voodoo or Jedi mind tricks Alex Anthopoulos has done, but to get all the baseball-friendly deals certainly has helped, but all the long-term deals to then keep that said team and that group for years and years and years to come. But if you're an Oriole fan, you got to be straight jacked up at how good things are here to open the season, how good it looks for what's to come. Holiday should be there already, let's be fair, but it's been a holiday that they have been on, a holiday road last certainly season plus into this year. New ownership now intact, off to a good start. Another win for the Orioles yesterday. Staying in the American League East, I said it earlier in this show, the Red Sox, and to me, the whole Netflix thing, it's a debacle. And I understand they're off to a 5-2 start, and this is going to sound fairly stupid, and fans can get on me that are Red Sox fans, and that's fine. Because, look, they've pitched the crap out of the ball, and Pivetta yesterday was great. I understand, but they played the A's, all right? They played the Oakland A's. Let's see them do that against the Yankees in New York with this lineup. But they've pitched the heck out of the ball so far in general from a starting rotation standpoint. They haven't hit very well. They're 5-2. But Alex Cora is in his last year, and I haven't talked to AC about this with this specific scenario. I know him a long time. Guy wants to win. And if he believes, and I know it seems like he wants to still be in Boston, if he wants to win and wants to be in Boston and thinks the Red Sox want to win, then yeah, that's something that long-term can be a thing for them. But as a guy who is going to be highly sought after and is one of the best managers in this game, if he doesn't think they want to win, why would he stay there? And why would he think they want to win? That ownership has done nothing to show any of us that they care about winning. They got money, but they seem to want to put it everywhere else. And you go into this season, you look at what they didn't do in free agency, and they did jack in what comes with it. Why the hell would you trust that the Red Sox want to win anything? I wouldn't. So, I don't know what that situation is going to turn into. But I still think, to me, this looks like a team that's going to be at the bottom of this division, especially when you think about the possibilities of the Jays. We know the Rays will always hang around, and I know they lost to the Rangers yesterday. And we know what the Orioles and the Yankees are. I don't think this is going to be a pleasant one, but 5-2 out of the gates, certainly not. Let's go Central American League and stay right. Just like the Rays, who I just mentioned, are a team that, we just know they're going to be in it every year. And by the way, I've counted the Brewers out of that list in the NL Central at least a couple of times in this podcast already this season. And into the season, Corbin Burns over here, and no Stearns, and no this. And, they kind of know what time it is. They know it's a Cardinal and Cubs division. And then the Brewers just keep winning games. So what do you know? But the Rays are in that category. They're just kind of always in it. And Terry Francona, Tito's, Guardians, Indians, then Guardians, were in that category. It didn't matter what was lost in the roster. It didn't matter what money they didn't spend. It didn't matter what big name. Okay, Lindor, we lost him. Okay, fine. It didn't seem to matter. They just find another way. Brantley's our best player. Oh, he's out for a year. Don't worry, we'll get to the playoffs and get to the World Series. It didn't matter. They just would defy those things. And time again, they overachieve seemingly, right? Or squeeze the most out of the orange or whatever you want to say they're not really that great by looks on the outside, but everything with the personality seems to be perfect, or however you want to put it, right? Well, here they are again. Here they are again. They 8-0 win over the Mariners yesterday. They're 5-2. Shane Bieber, for those who have not seen the last two starts, has been brilliant. He's been old Biebs, and if he pitches that way this season, that's difference maker city, not only for them now, but also for if they wanted to move him. But Stephen Vogt's club is off and running. Logan Allen, 6 2/3, shutout innings yesterday. Ho-hum, the Guardians are just doing what they do. So kudos to them. And I love Stephen Vogt, one of my favorite people in the sport, and anybody who's ever met or talked to the guy. So kudos to him, off to a great start. But if they keep pitching this way, Jose Ramirez, drove in 3 yesterday. I think Steven Kwan had 3 more hits. They're just doing what they do. I mean, I don't know why we ever, and we being me too, ever doubt that they're going to be in the mix. And, it is not just about, and I love Tito, what Terry Francona has built in the culture there, and Chris Antonetti and that group. You started with Mark Shapiro, all of that. That's continuing on. Stephen Vogt, perfect guy to kind of carry that torch. Mentioned the Rays before losing to the Rangers. Evaldi, 7 innings, no runs, 4 hits, 8 Ks. Obviously, the bad news about Josh Young, and then we find out that it's not going to be. It's even worse news. Not going to be 6 weeks. Maybe it's 8 to 10 weeks. Well, ho-hum. Here comes Evaldi. A really good start yesterday. They beat the Rays. Rangers will keep on pushing. Look what Langford's look like. They're going to be just fine. Nothing has been fine so far for the Miami Marlins. So much so that the Angels, staying in that AL West, who hope to be somehow in the mix with the Rangers, and somehow in the mix with the Mariners, and in the mix with the Astros, have been right in the mix. They're sitting there at right atop the division right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. The sweep of the Marlins, after everything looked bleak to start the season, Wash got that club going. But I got to spend a minute on the Marlins, who have just been bad. Skip's team is off to a bad start. 0-7 that's, it's funny. What's the difference between 0-4? I'm about to tell you and kind of laugh at the Mets a little bit. It's not the end of the world, but what did you expect them to be? 0-4-2, 2 ties to the rain. But 0-7 just is kind of a lot worse. 0-7, not great. Okay? It's not great. Luis Arias, remember the start he got off to last year? He hit 185. Jazz Chisholm talking a lot about Miguel Rojas on the Pivot podcast. Great podcast, by the way. But he hit 130. Not great if you're a Marlins fan. Mention the Mets, 0-4-2. They're hoping that they can help out with some of the issues in their pitching staff. McGill now, Tyler, he is not going to be around for at least a couple weeks. So we'll find out what happens with that. But Julio Teheran comes in, former Met killer, stint with the Brewers last year. No idea what it's going to amount to. But this is one of those really low risk. And if you get any reward, it'll be good enough. Ironically, they may see him in this series coming up against the Braves here in Atlanta at the beginning of next week. Teheran's been good at Citi Field in the past. He's been good against the Mets. I got no idea what he's going to do. He was out of the league in 2022. He made, 11 starts, I think it was, last year. So we'll see what we get out of Teheran. But we need to understand this about the Mets, okay? Yeah, Steve Cohen yesterday was at CNBC. He was on somewhere talking about how he's not worried. It's early in the season. And, you got Met fans who weren't worried, and then they're panicking. And I see the season is over, and nobody cares, and let's move Alonso. And this is the part that I need to then reiterate to you. And as I like to always say, come closer to the screen. Or if you're driving, listen to the podcast, close to the wheel, but just be careful. The Mets aren't good, okay? They're not a good team. They're a sort of mediocre, have a chance if everything rolls right with the starting pitching to be a bit better than that. Hopefully, JD Martinez, who should be there Sunday or Monday, will help out the lineup and make it deeper. But they are kind of a mid-drift team who, if they stay healthy enough in this world we live in, can be on the outskirts of town for some sort of a wild card, meaningful game scenario heading into the deadline, and then have to decide how much is about the future, how much is about now. They will, and David Stearns always will, decide future because he understands this team's not ready to win every year. Then you'll see the Gilberts or the Angel Acuñas and the Williams and whoever else they want to bring up, and that'll be the end of your season going into next year. That's probably the way it was going to play out. And even at 0-4, what mediocre teams do, right? I root for a hockey team that's very much that way. And what do? Well, they drive you nuts. It's worse than rooting for a team that's like 500 is a worse scenario to go through than rooting for a team that's great. If you root or a team that's bad, excuse me. Because if you root for a team that's great, obviously it's easy. But if you root for a team that's bad, that's easy too. I know they suck. I'm a New York Giants fan, right? Watching that football team and continuing to watch it into this next year. I know how bad they are. It's easy. Sure, I still watch the team, but I can't really get aggravated. Between games, I don't think about it at all, to be honest. It's fine, no problem. They're just bad. It's like the difference between losing 10-0 or losing, 9-8, in the 15th inning. Rather lose 10-0. You always hear that, and you're thinking, well, wouldn't you want a chance? No, it's easier. It's fine. I know I'm not in it to win it. Now, you root for a mediocre team and a 500 team, that's the worst. That's like an evil from hell you don't want to deal with. Because in one 10-game stretch, it's going to happen, by the way. Maybe it starts tonight. Maybe it starts today with this doubleheader and they sweep it. It's going to happen. This is what happens with teams like, remember I said this. Okay? This may continue and they may start 1-8. And then guess what? The Mets are going to go 8-2. And then all of a sudden we're going to be like, oh, thank God that old start is over. And guess what? Then they're going to go 3-7, and then they're going to go 6-4. And that is what happens. They're up and down seesaw, depending upon whether or not that, everything is going right one week and it's going to go wrong the next week. And that is the life of a mediocre team. And that's kind of what the Mets are going to be this year. So I don't know what the hell you expected, but 0-4-2 to start the year. Away you go. Away we go, or before we go, I want to get away from baseball and just say this and get into this brawl yesterday with Rempe and McDermott and the Rangers and the Devils. So for those who didn't see, at the face-off, there's been a ton of background and history, including Rempe with a huge hit on Siegenthaler that got him suspended the last time these teams played. Plus, the Rangers have beat up on the Devils. Look where the two teams are in the division. And there was a lot of we got to stand up for ourselves. And in the last matchup, McDermott, who was added to the Devils to bring some toughness, tried to fight Rempe. Rempe didn't want to do it. And then later in the day, and that was the first time we'd ever seen him in that first week and a half or so, whatever it was, that he was, up with the Rangers, show some sort of, I guess, I don't know, he wasn't even passive, but a choice and a decision not to be all about it, right? And then later in the game, obviously the dirty hit, and he was skating on that border at least a couple of times in games prior to that, then went overboard, terrible, deserved the suspension, 4 or 5 games, whatever he got, and boom, okay? Then it comes in yesterday, and they're lining up right in the face-up. Both coaches know what time it is. Everybody knows what the deal is, and they're going to go, and eventually everybody goes. And you got all 5 guys fighting all 5 guys except for the goaltenders, which would have been fun, but it didn't happen, right? Shesterkin and company, they're just picking up the gloves and stuff all around the ice. And it is what it is. If you're a hockey fan, and if you're a diehard, then you know the story and you're into it, and it's the beauty of hockey, because part of the beauty of hockey, and I love watching Connor McDavid, but part of the beauty of hockey is that team element. It's why you love so much when you see the handshake line at the end of a Stanley Cup playoff series, which is one of the great things in all of sports to me. And that's better than anything you're getting in another sport in terms of that thing. And why? Because we give in blood, sweat, and tears like the end of a UFC fight. When you get done, you see guys respect each other because we are in there and we are given everything that we got in such a difficult sport, right? Physically and mentally and emotionally and just taxing in those series and all of that. But there's that train that gets you there is that, all the up and down and defending your teammates and being that way. It's not just about the pretty skating, but it is also about the hits. It is about the defense. It is about the toughness. It's about the job, the role of the enforcer, as well as part of that. That's part of the sport. These people who are out there that I'm watching on Twitter who have just numbskulls, nincompoops, got no idea about hockey. Oh, this is what's wrong with the sport. Or, oh, this is why I don't watch hockey, or this explains it, or honestly, it's bullshit. If we're being fair, hide the kids. It just is. It just is. If you don't like hockey, that's fine. But let me just tell you this and be very, very fair about this. It is the best sport to go to live. I don't care if you're a diehard baseball fan and dyed in the wool. And what? Look, I love. There's a huge baseball behind me. I love baseball. It is not as fun to go to live as hockey. Neither is basketball. Certainly, neither is football. It's just not. So drag somebody who says BS like this and sees this kind of stuff to a hockey game live, and it'll be like when you get dragged to a concert of, that CD your friend plays in the car that you can't stand, and they drag you to it live. I've done that with people with Springsteen before, and they go to it live, and then all of a sudden they're buying the stuff and downloading it themselves. Hockey is an unbelievable sport, and part of it is that understanding. And by the way, go to afterwards McDermott's comments talking about how much he respects and thinks that Rempe has done a good job and understands he's trying to do his job. There is a respect level within all that chaos that you just saw. And people who just like to shit on hockey for no reason, who did that yesterday, I'm sorry, that's lazy to me. Never get lazy here. Stick with us at Unfiltered. Remember, join us on Instagram at Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Want to hear from you on Twitter, X, if you will, at Casey Stern. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast, give me a follow, jump up into the bio, get through to the YouTube channel, and it'll give you all the videos. Like, subscribe, tell all your friends. Now 283 episodes deep into Unfiltered, which as always is presented